Hello, I'm Anjelica and I'm here with.
Greg Maxie.
Um, where did you go to school?
I went to school in Las Vegas, Nevada. Graduated in 1977.
Why did you want to be in the school board?
I was watching how, I think the easiest thing was, it was clear that there was changes coming to education both at the national level and the state level. And I advocate daily for teachers and students. And I felt like by running for the school board, I could make a stand and prevent some of the bad changes that were coming to education at the local level by running for the school board.
What have you done in your previous time in the school board?
When I first got started, there had not been a raise for teachers or staff. And so one of the first things I did was make sure that we got a $1,000 increment for all staff, both custodians all the way up to teachers and administrators. The next thing we did is began to put in policies that were fair and equitable and began to adhere to those policies both for the budget as well as for policies involving students' education.
What does the National Education Association of New Mexico do?
Okay, so NEA New Mexico is a professional union that is joined by the teachers in the state of New Mexico. In Southeast Region, I'm their UNISERV director, and so I do trainings and representations for teachers, ancillary staff, custodians, secretaries, things like that. So we do a lot of training. We also advocate for due process as well as ensuring that proper compensation happens for educational staff.
What does the school board do?
Well, the school board is basically, to put it one way, they're the eyes and ears for the superintendent. The school board only has one employee, according to the New Mexico statutes from House Bill 212 in 2003. Their one and only employee is the superintendent. And so they don't get involved in the day-to-day activities of teachers and hiring administrators, things like that. But what they do is go to the schools and visit with community members, parents, kids. And what we will do is we're kind of the eyes and the ears for the superintendent. We set the policies that the employees work under and the kids learn. So one of the things we have to set is the alternative demonstration of competency for kids that may not be able to pass the PARCC or some of the other testing. We set those regulations and then we provide those diplomas.
Why do we care about the school board?
I think it's important to care about the school board because the school board sets those policies. We talk about how many credits they're going to have, students are going to have to graduate. We're going to talk about the budget. One of our big fiduciary responsibilities and ethical responsibility is the maintenance and spending of the money. We have to provide an EPS plan on how that money is spent. We also have to provide a plan that goes with, you know, when you came on in the 9th grade, you were given a next step plan, correct? Well, we have to make sure that that budget meets your next step plan because that's a contract from the school board to each student. And I don't think we necessarily talk to kids enough about that. Because when was the last time you reviewed your next step plan?
My freshman year was the last time I seen that paper.
Okay, so the next step plan, what we want to do is make sure that we spend the money. So one of the things that we did is the fact that you have the Z computers in this particular tech lab. The money that was allocated for the screen in here and for the cameras. And then also to make sure that we have enough teachers for your English language classes. We have enough teachers for the bilingual. And one of the things that we've put out since I've been a school board member that I'm very proud of is we've implemented 2 programs. One is the soccer program for both boys and girls that had never been in Lovington before. And the other thing is the bilingual seal. We have a number of students who are fluent in Spanish and English. And for the first time, we're going to have a group of students who, because they can demonstrate through testing that they're able to be bilingual in both English and Spanish, on their graduation, they will receive a dual credit seal, which makes that a much more marketable. If they're going into the work world, many of our oil companies are looking for people who are certified dual language, as well as those going on to college. So those are 2 things of why kids should care about the school board, because we set the policies and we put the money around to ensure that your educational career has significance and meaning to you, so you can be successful.
How many school board members are there?
The Lovington School Board has 5 members.
How many other candidates are there?
Well, the first time I ran, there were 6 candidates, and I was fortunate enough that the voters voted me in 2013. This year, I think that speaks to my colleagues on the school board as well as the current superintendent, Ms. Leanne Gandy. Nobody decided to run against Ms. Mara Salcido Alcantar or against myself. I think that speaks to our community is happy with the direction the current school board and the current superintendent are moving the education for our community.
And how long is each term?
Each term is for 4 years.
How many years have you been on the school board?
So I'm just completing my 4th year, and since I'm running unopposed, I'll be picking up another 4 years. So I will, by the time I get through completing this term, will have been on the board for 8 years.
And what do you plan on doing in the school board?
In the school board, some of the goals that I'm looking for is we have some real turbulent times right now. Kids have a little anxiety about what's taking place in our country and our society. We want to make sure that kids feel safe in our schools, regardless of where they come from, regardless of where their nationality is. We're here to educate kids. We're here to ensure that they have a future. So one of the things we want to make sure that our schools are safe and secure for our students, and students regardless of their religious background, their ethnic background, or their nationality. We have a duty to educate kids. And so we want to stay with that purpose. The other thing that I want to look at is us regaining control of our teacher evaluation system. If you notice, teachers seem like they're extremely stressful. And it's always about testing. You know, how many days are you doing testing now? You're doing park, and you see your friends coming in and out of class. Would it be safe to say, if I can ask you a question, would it be safe to say that since February of every year, there's really no learning taking place because there's so much testing going on?
Yeah.
See, I want to put an end to that. Wouldn't you rather be either in a book that you liked or a computer lab that you're liking instead of all the constant testing? I think we need to do away with the constant testing. Go ahead.
I agree.
All right, we're on it. And because high stakes testing has been taken away from local control, I want us to go ahead and maintain local control of how we evaluate teachers, how we evaluate principals, and how we ensure student success, because you can't test kids to greatness.
What is your opinion on cell phone policy?
On the cell phone policy? Interesting you should say that. The cell phone policy comes up about once a year to the board. And with technology changing, we have got to change also. The problem we had a few years ago is we know that with the cell phones that you can come out today and you can actually respond to your teachers. The problem is we also at that same time had some bullying issues that took place. We saw kids being bullied. There was it was like Snapchat, but it was local with it, so you could say something crass and ugly about someone. And next thing we know, we had some students that were really either withdrawing from school or withdrawing from their families. There were some emotional things there. And so we have to manage the cell phone as a learning device versus an entertainment device. I can tell you, I go into classes from time to time and everybody's like this, and it's kind of like, must be gum underneath the table or something. And we know it's not. So I think we have to balance it. I think as you all are moving through your high school careers, you guys are picking up responsibilities. An employer is not going to pay you to be looking at your cell phone all day. And I think we have to figure out how do we model that in the educational setting that meets what's going to be taking place in your college and career.
And your opinion on dress code?
Dress code, I think dress code is important. I think dress codes change. I can remember there was a time that piercings had a different opinion of what piercings meant. Tattoos had a different thing. But as you see society kind of change and move in and out, I think we have to adjust that. There was a time where you couldn't allow color in your hair. I think the most important thing about dress code is if somebody's dressing and it's drawing attention to themselves and it's creating a problem in the educational setting, then that's something we want to address. But I don't think it's our job to go around. I can remember when I was in high school back in the 70s, girls would have to get down on their knees and put their hands down beside their skirt, and if their skirt didn't touch the ends of their fingers, they were sent home. We did silly things like that. The other thing that's happened is, I believe with the advent of Title IX and the equal rights, civil rights amendments have come up, you know, how society dictates what makes a women's attire appropriate or inappropriate, I think has got to change. You know, I don't think anyone has to mansplain to a female what's appropriate or inappropriate. I think it goes back to the main key is, if what you're wearing or how you're wearing your hair or what piercings or anything that you have, if they're creating an educational disturbance, then I think we address them that way.
And how should the school district handle the transgender student restroom issue?
Well, I think we've handled it. Do you hear of any problems in our school?
No.
That's right. So we've handled it. I think what we have to do, I'm really appreciative of my colleagues on the school board. I attended a training 4 years ago when I first got on the school board, a national training in San Diego. And there, as I was attending, there was a school district in Wisconsin that had had a transgender student commit suicide. The federal government came in and forced the district to spend $9 million that they didn't have on transgender restrooms, on a Title IX officer, and all those kinds of things. After hearing that you can either be reactive or proactive, I came back and talked to my fellow board members, and we decided, with the help of the superintendent, as well as Bill Lewis, our grounds and operations person, that we would go about doing this quietly. And if you'll look, as we began to do the building over the last 3 years, there's been a unique restroom created. And that restroom is a safe place for anyone of any gender identification to go to and take care of. And in our school district, when that all erupted 2 years ago about transgender, not a problem. I think that's how you deal with things. You know, and we have parents who are concerned about that, and when they heard that we had dealt with the problem, that we had actually created safe facilities, it's become a non-issue in Lovington. What's interesting, it seems to be more of an adult issue than it is a kid issue.
Are there any other policies that you wish you could change?
That I wish I could change. What I find interesting is, in the review of our policies, which we do as a school board from time to time and in different settings, not only myself but my colleagues will come in and say, you know, we want to look at this policy. An interesting policy that just came up was the expulsion policy. In our old policy, the superintendent could not sit on the expulsion board. And so we changed that policy. So at this time, I'm happy with our policies. Are they perfect? No. But policies have to be reviewed. They have to be amended based on what the community is wanting. These aren't policies about my personal beliefs or systems. They're policies that reflect the Lovington community. And my goal as a Lovington School Board member is to make sure that our policies reflect the Lovington community.
And what are your hopes for this generation?
I think we're sitting at a really unique time. My son and daughter both graduated from here, and I also raised two dream kids from Lovington. Do you know what a dreamer is?
No.
Okay, those are kids that came here as illegal immigrants, and through no fault of their own, one of them, his father was killed in an oil field accident. The minute the father died, his petition for citizenship died, and so therefore he's still an illegal immigrant, an illegal resident, I should say, in our community. And so I think it's important that we continue to fight and represent those kids. Two of those kids, as well as my own, wound up going into service for our country after 9/11. And we were able to get their citizenship because of that, because there's an actual clause in the Department of Defense that says if you serve more than 24 hours in a combat zone and you're not a legal resident, you can also you can then petition to get your citizenship. The thing that I'm most excited about is you guys are a generation that grew up without knowing war. We've been at war since you guys have been at school. That's a pretty scary thing. And we've also had a lot of our students go through the military service, which is admirable and I honor. And that has also allowed us for them to have free education. I think we're looking at a generation that takes their role and responsibility seriously. I think we're looking at a generation that we have worked hard to provide a well-rounded education, not only for college but also for career. And that's something we haven't done in the past. And so I'm excited that we have an educated generation that is motivated to step up and take their place in our society. So I'm pretty excited about the future. I am very excited about the future for our kids.
And do you see any differences between your generation and this generation?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I was thinking of, when I was in school, we used to look back at the 60s, the civil rights movement, and we saw the horrible things that happened to people that stood for social justice then. We look at all the people that were put down in the LA schools, the Hispanics, and how the Hispanics had to get up and walk out of their schools to get equal treatment, to get textbooks funded. So we were talking about people of color and how hard their fight was. And then we had the whole thing with gender and females getting equal access. And as I sat in class, I used to think, well, what would I do if I had lived then? And just probably like a lot of your colleagues. But we're living in a really interesting time in which some of those same issues are resurfacing again. And I think the question is not what would I do, but what are you doing? Because it's no longer about what would I have done if back then. It's really about what am I doing now, because now's the time and the opportunity. And so the difference is we observed history and wondered what we would do. Your generation is living history, and the question is, what are you going to do?
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for filling in so quick.